Collins here. Today I'm joined by Cory the Sandman Sandhagen, who returns to action August 3rd, facing Umar Nurmagomedov. Cory, great to sit down and chat for the first time. How are things with you today?
Yeah, they're great. Like I was saying, today's kind of my lighter day, so that feels real good because camp is really challenging and really physically hard. So yeah, today's good.
I presume it's always challenging and always physically hard, but is that more or less than normal? Like, have you made certain adjustments for this fight? What is that? Is that something with all of your camps or just this one in general?
No, I kind of want all of them to be like this for the rest of my career. I really want to like let myself become an old guy. I want to. I like train a bunch of the like 20 to 25-year olds at the gym, and I kind of want to be able to keep up with them for the rest of my career. So, no, I don't plan on really slowing down. I actually see it as a little bit of a challenge as to just, keep the same hunger that I had 10 years ago too.
I love it. It'll basically be a year to the date of the original date for the August 5th, I believe, in Nashville, to then August 3rd, 363 or whatever days later. Obviously, there's a risk of burnout and a risk of overtraining for a specific opponent. So how have you adjusted to that such a long period of, having your eye on one potential guy?
It's just a experience thing. I feel like I'm pretty good about like knowing where my tipping point is.
Mm,
So there's definitely that. I definitely think that that's like a skill in itself, is just being able to peak and be able to, pull back when you need to pull back, but then also push harder when you need to push harder. But no, I kind of was planning on fighting Umar for a really long time now. So I've kind of had plenty of time to sit and, adjust and take my time with trying to figure him out. And now it's just like really hammering that stuff home, and then of course getting physically in shape too.
So obviously you come off the Font win, and obviously that's a great win. Of course you have the injury in the first round, but nevertheless you get the job done. So after that fight, and obviously once you've had time to heal, was this the fight that you were still chasing?
I was chasing the title fight.
Of course.
Um, Definitely chasing that one, but just matter of circumstance, my arm being hurt, and then just the way that the fight went, and then I guess the O'Malley Chito thing that they had going on made them choose him. So no, I kind of once I saw that was happening, I was really curious to see what they were still gonna do. I didn't know if they were gonna maybe do me a Merab or who they were gonna match me up with, but I kind of figured that Umar has the most unique style, so that's the one that I would kind of focus on the most. And I thought that the odds were kind of high that they were gonna ask me to fight him again.
What specifically was the tricep injury? Was it a tear?
Yeah, it's actually a really rare injury, I guess, but yeah, it tore at the elbow and then
Mm,
rolled up this way. I was having a bunch of bursitis in that elbow going into the fight, and so the bursitis got infected, and then I was on a ton of antibiotics. Like the first set of antibiotics didn't work, so then I had to go on like a longer, more powerful ones after that or whatever. And I suppose antibiotics make it so that your ligaments and stuff get really weak. So I'm assuming that that's what happened, because I don't even really remember anything specifically like physically harming me at the time. It just kind of like felt like something really bad happened to it. It felt like I couldn't really extend my arm very well. It felt like real weak. It felt like there was like a big balloon in it, and
mm,
it kind of like hurt to touch. And I kind of was just ignoring it the whole fight, because I was like, all right, like just take him down, hold him down. Like
mm,
this is gonna suck. Don't tear your bicep or tear anything
mm.
else so that you can't use the arm at all. And then the ref in between one of the rounds was like, hey, is your arm okay? And I was like, oh shit, this thing must be like visibly kind of bad. So yeah, it was kind of a shit experience, honestly. I've never had that happen so significantly in a fight, so it kind of sucked. But I guess that's kind of just how it goes. I should be lucky that that's the only time that it's happened in however many fights I've had now.
Yeah, because I know in the immediate aftermath you weren't the happiest with your performance, but then when you take the glass half full approach and you win every round against another top 10 guy, there's a lot of positives to take given the how compromised you were with that injury, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it kind of just sucks because I like to look at these things as displays of all the hard work that I've been doing and
Mm.
like my art.
Yeah.
So it sucks when that kind of doesn't really get to happen, but you just pivot. It's just sports. So that's the way that it goes.
Well, talking about this fight, I mean, there's a lot said about, your number two fighting number 10. What's the sense in fighting a guy so far down the rankings? But then before we jumped on and looked at the rest of the bantamweight division, you've beat three of the other guys recently in the top 10, and a lot of the other guys are coming off losing streaks, the likes of Peter Yan, Chito obviously comes to mind. I know you beat him as well. So does this fight make more sense than the rankings perhaps suggest?
Yeah, I would say definitely. I think that you know, I kind of one of my like things with the UFC is I was like, hey man, I feel like I was scheduled to fight Umar before, and if he doesn't like rack a win before me and him get scheduled to fight again, like that kind of seems a little bit unfair to me, you know.
Mm.
But he went and won. He won all three rounds really decisively. He showed up. He did a really good job. And yeah, like you said, I beat a decent amount of these guys. Jan, I think, tore his ACL or something in his last one, so he's not good to fight anytime soon. And so yeah, I think that me and Umar make a lot of sense. Umar has a really decent like name value to him too.
Mm.
So that's a piece to, as much as we all kind of try to ignore that's definitely a piece of, you know, the decision making process. So yeah, I'm cool with it, man. I also think that Umar's a really good fighter. Like if I didn't think that he wasn't skilled or it would just be like a wash fight or anything, I definitely wouldn't ask to fight him. But I think he's going to be a really tough, unique challenge, and I'm excited for that.
Can I ask as well, and I know that you're somebody who's very, wants to be the best in the world. You want to prove to be the best is what you possibly do. And I speak to a lot of guys in the top 15, and they say once you get that ranking, kind of things change because you have to be more strategic about who you fight next, and everybody wants to fight the guy, higher than them in the rankings, but somebody's obviously got to fight below. So, as a guy who's right in that top number two range, do you feel like maybe the top 15 can get too strategic at times, and maybe people should be more happy to fight below them and maybe fight the guys who, kind of give up position a little bit more?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's the way that I handle the sport.
Mm.
Um, I don't want this sport to turn into boxing. I don't want it to turn into this like weird no, I won't fight him unless it's for this amount of money, and I won't do this. And like that's not what I signed up for when I was a teenager and I wanted to start doing this. I signed up to try to see if I was the best fighter in the world. And when I got into the UFC, they didn't have rankings anyways. So um that's like not something that was ever really like, I think that that's a really good way to sit on your ass and not make paychecks when you could be making paychecks because you only got so many years in this sport. So that's the way I see it, man. Is I got maybe 4, 5, 6, 7 years left in me, and then I'm out, and I don't really want to do it bitching about fighting lower rank opponents, especially when I think that they're pretty good.
Don't say you've only got 4 years left because that makes me sad, Corey.
I'm
Uh,
32. I'm 32. I think 37, 38, 39. I'll go as long as I can, definitely. But yeah, we'll see. I don't know. Maybe they'll come up with some better recovery stuff or like stuff like that in the future. And then maybe I'll be able to fight till I'm 45, 50. Who knows?
100%. I'll give you the one layup question of this interview, but give me your scouting report on your next opponent. Tell me what you think he does well, and tell me where you think are areas you're looking to exploit.
Yeah, so Umar definitely has like a really unique style. Just kind of the Russian style in general, as far as grappling, it's pretty on par with the rest of those guys. His striking is what separates him from a lot of those guys. Is he has a really TKD like bladed kickboxing background, which is really unique for that.
Mm.
Throws a lot of like really kicks with a lot of dexterity in him. He is definitely a really strong, like good athlete, and it's going to be a really challenging fight for sure in the striking and then also in the grappling too. So his striking is unique and needs to be approached very uniquely. The grappling is also kind of the same, but I feel like a lot of those guys from Russia and just that style of grappling in general has been very good at not just getting takedowns but pinning people to the mat. Like that's what they do better than anything. Like they're pretty good. They're definitely good wrestlers, but not like so far above the wrestlers that we've seen in the UFC.
Mm.
But what they do well is they pin people to the mat. So just approaching that, like making sure that I have all of those answers for everything. They also grapple in a style where, well, grappling in general, if you don't approach certain puzzle pieces correctly, you're just going to be throwing paint at a wall the entire fight.
Mm.
And I have like really good grappling coaches. I work with a guy named Carrington Banks and then also Ryan Hall, who are very obviously good, accomplished grapplers. So I feel like I have all of that, in my back pocket too. So, but yeah, definitely a tough fight against a really athletic, like unique styled fighter. So.
I was going to ask about that, and I say this knowing that you've obviously seen to take a much more of an offensive wrestling approach in these last the 3-fight win streak you've built up across Song, Chito, and Font. Obviously, I'm conscious that the Font fight was obviously part of an injury, but when we think about the Nurmagomedovs, we obviously think about their wrestling ability. Is there any part of you that has any motivation to kind of out offensive wrestle Umar and kind of prove that point? I mean, obviously, I'm not asking you to give away your game plan totally, but did you think about that in your mind to try and out wrestle the supposed wrestling specialists?
Not really. I mean, I'm not gonna do anything that I'm doing,
Mm,
like MMA wrestling is different than wrestling. So no, I'm not gonna change anything that I'm doing too much, like I'll just pick different weapons to plug in there. But Sun Tzu says this, I think, in The Art of War, and it's one of like my favorite quotes. I believe it's Sun Tzu, but he says the only point to fighting is to win. There isn't like this, there's no ego to this. There isn't a me trying to prove something to people thing. Like
mm.
the objective is to win, and whatever that entails is the only really things that I really care about.
Mm. And I caught up on your live chat with Luke Thomas. Luke Thomas is a friend of mine. It was a fantastic piece of content between you both. I saw you notice at the start you're working with Trevor Wittman now, and a key part of that was to try and improve your KO power. So, what are some of the techniques or some of the methods that you and Trevor are implementing to try and improve that knockout ability?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Trevor's he's really good. I've known Trevor for a really long time, of course, but this is the first time where I've worked really, really closely with Trevor.
Mm,
And Trevor's like super precise with what it is that he's doing. Like I have a very open-ended conceptual approach to fighting. Like I'm like, yeah, just give me the goal and I'll like figure out how to like maneuver my way to that goal.
mm,
I do really good with things like that. And I think for a lot of years, I kind of ignored like a lot of the details in like approaching a goal more directly. And
mm,
so Trevor's given me a lot of those ways. He's obviously teaching me like the sweet science. He comes from a boxing background, so they have their whole sweet science to the way that they do things too, which has actually been really fun for me to learn. I'm a little bit of a modernist, not necessarily a traditionalist, so it's kind of nice to take a little bit of a step back and be like, oh, I guess these things that worked 100 years ago still work, and I can still be okay with that. I don't need to be this like rebellious modern day punk that I sometimes can be. So yeah, so that's kind of where me and Trevor are now.
mm. I was going to ask then as well. Where do you feel like your skill set is at in terms of the potential? Like at this point of your career at 32, as you mentioned, and all the fights and all the the challenges that you've been faced with, how much do you feel like you can build upon the skill set that you already have, or at this stage of your career, is it about refining the skills that you've already built?
Yeah, it's about refining. So I got this idea from talking to a couple of buddies of mine, Ryan Paul and Ton Lee. They're a little bit later in their career, but the way that they brought this idea up to me was actually really interesting. But they were having a discussion about how they wanted to develop a style that would work a couple of years down the road, where maybe they didn't have the same athletic abilities.
Mm,
And so, kind of then I've kind of really been approaching things in that way, because I do think that that's like the pinnacle of technique, is if I can teach like a 50-year-old or a 5-year-old or anyone
mm,
the proper mechanics of how to do things. It really shouldn't matter about how athletic they are and this and that. And of course, athleticism helps or whatever. But um, I really like the idea of like long game stuff. Like I don't think about like tomorrow as much as I think about like 5 years from now. So
mm.
yeah, I mean, I'm constantly learning and always trying to do my best, but that's something that I definitely keep in the back of my mind is I don't want to rely super heavily on athleticism in order to be good. I want to be good because my technical skills and my timing and all of these other things that go into winning fights is just as well. So there's that. When I think about like my own potential, when I watch those videos of people in the UFC, like, hey, rate rate your skills 1 through 10, and then I hear people like say crazy things like give themselves 8, 9s, and 10s. Like that to me is no bueno. That's like not the way that I think. I think that I'm probably somewhere between like a 4 and a 6 as far as like what I imagine I can actually be. Like uh, and I think that, not to toot my own horn, but that takes a decent amount of imagination to like see this like futuristic, like unbelievable, like perfectly crafted fighter that I'm really striving to be. I don't know if I have time to become that person, but yeah, I think that as far as my skill sets go, I think I'm somewhere between like a 4 and a 6 because I just have so much more to get more precise at, so much more to learn in all areas. So yeah, I think I got a long ways to go still.
I love that, and I really appreciate the humility because, as you say, we hear a lot of double figures on that scale of 1 to 10 list, which kind of surprises me, and it's probably a function of people's egos more than anything else. I would argue. Another point that you mentioned with Luke that I wanted to bring you back to is you described Umar as a mythical monster. Now, with that being said, in the build up to this fight, in the preparation, do you build that idea of a mythical monster in your mind? Do you allow the myth of the Magomedovs to be even larger than it is, or do you not focus on it in those terms?
No, not really. I'm kind of a fuck media guy, you know.
Mm,
Not like your guys' media, but like I don't really love like propaganda, and I don't really love like narrations that just are borderline lies.
hype
And I think
pieces,
that, huh?
hype pieces, essentially.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't really dig that type of stuff. So Umar's a normal human being just like me. He comes from the background that he comes from, and he has his skills in what he's good at, and he has like other things like heart and a bunch of psychological like powers as well too. But
Mm,
so do I,
mm,
and I don't see the world in that way. I think that we're all like normal people that are blessed with certain things that are really awesome, and we all have our really unique blessings that we can
mm.
use. And it's like your job to identify what those are, what you're weak at, and then just get better at the ones that you're weak at and like really capitalize on the ones that you're good at. So no, I don't really like I don't like turning any of these people into larger than life things because they're not.
Yeah, no, 100%. I also want to bring, and this is what I do sometimes, Corey, I'll caveat this. I do like to bring people back to quotes they previously said and dive a little bit deeper. But I had a long drive on Tuesday and I listened to your last episode with Joe Rogan in anticipation of speaking with you. And you talked about how in an earlier part of your career, you had this war mentality. You were going to war. And then you described in the Chito fight, you had this very much sense of presence and sense of like flow state, for lack of a better phrase. So I'm wondering, with that being said, and obviously with the injury in your last fight, and obviously the layoff having a year out the cage, what's the mentality going into this fight? What's the mentality that you're looking to have throughout training camp and more specifically during the 25
Yeah.
minutes in the cage?
Yeah, sure. So this camp, I've been like real excited, man. I've been on the bench, like going to all of these shows, just like getting a different perspective of what the UFC is from like an entertainment standpoint,
Mm,
instead of the like like really like close to my heart sport that I really, really care about. So that was really interesting, but it kind of fired me up. Like I remember leaving each show like, damn, like I want to do what that guy did. I want to do what that guy did. That was so awesome. So I'm definitely really fired up to like crack into my second half of my UFC career is the way that I'm seeing
mm,
this. I'm super like I've been working my ass off. I have kind of like been avoiding a lot of burnout just by reminding myself that, hey man, you got 5 to 7 years left in this thing. So, like really give it all you got. You can do anything. Like you could do that for 5 to 7 years. Like that's no big deal. But as far as kind of the mindset goes, I feel like it's really difficult because life happens in seasons, you know, like sometimes it's good to be like a pissed off character going into certain fights, and then sometimes it's better to be a little bit more zen and calculated and all of that stuff. So to be honest with you, I think it's going to depend on the night, you know, like if I need to kind of induce like a higher intensity in my body, then maybe I'll venture into that. Maybe I didn't sleep good the night before, so I got to kind of like pump myself up a little bit more.
Mm.
Or maybe I'm just like mega focused and I don't need to do any of that, and I can just kind of like be level where I am. And so that type of thing is always something that I feel like changes, and it changes on the night just because maybe I ate something wrong and that night I feel like shit. So I got to like tell myself a million times that I don't feel like shit. And
Mm.
then sometimes things are just perfect and riding perfectly and I don't really need to mess with it at all. And so yeah, so that's kind of the way that I see mindset is it's this like morphic thing that I have control over now. And I think that that's the most important part.
I love that. And I have to say, I do use your Instagram sometimes as a sense of inspiration with some of the quotes that you tag your posts on. So I'm wondering, is there a particular quote, a particular piece of advice that you're maybe meditating on at this moment in time in this camp that you could share with us?
I always fall back to so growing up, my parents didn't care about sports at all. Like me and my sister were super into sports. We like treated them like they were everything, and
Mm.
my parents didn't. Uh, and so which I think is good, but my dad, whenever I would get stressed about anything, whether it be a game, a fight, when I was early in amateurs, early professionals, even now, like he had it was like always kind of the worst advice at the time, but looking back, it's the best. Or he would just be like, "Hey man, just do your best." And so that's kind of what I live by. Like in my Instagram bio, I'm just a dude doing his best. And, you
Mm.
know, like that's all that I can ever really ask myself. That's kind of the way that I've been living for, you know, the last few years. I don't put a ton of pressure on myself anymore, really. I kind of just like I know what my best is, and as long as I'm doing that, then I'm cool.
I love it. I know these things don't get confirmed with the UFC, but in your mind, as you prepare for this next fight, and I'm sure the focus is on Umar, do you feel like you win this fight and the title shot is yours?
Yeah, definitely. I think that there's really nobody else. I
Mm.
think that, you know, me and Merab have been in discussion about fighting before, and I know that everyone in the entire world that's a UFC fan wants to watch me and Sean O'Malley fight. So I think that it's pretty much a done deal if I go get it done against Umar.
Looking at O'Malley and Merab, because that looks next, I think it's UFC 306 that they're discussing that for. In your mind, as a guy who studies the game, could you give me maybe one piece of advice for both Sean and Merab to fight each other? Like if you were game planning for both guys, what do you think are the keys for each guy to have success?
Yeah, I think Merab needs to really close the gap a lot better than he's been shown to do in the past. Like he gets clipped sometimes just putting his head in that space in between him and his opponent. And if you do that incorrectly against O'Malley, he will 1000% make you pay for that.
Mm.
I think O'Malley needs to not make the same mistake that I feel like Petr Yan made when he fought Merab, in that you can't just nullify the takedowns. You need to nullify and then capitalize.
Mm.
So you can't just spend an entire 25 minutes defending shots because
Mm.
that doesn't win you a fight. What's going to win you a fight is doing damage on the other person. So it needs to be about building a game plan around shutting down the shot, but also making it so that you could be offensive at your points too. So that would be my advice.
There was a bit of an asterisk around Sean over the last couple of fights. I mean, he has the split decision win over Peter that not many people give him the fight, and then obviously he has the O'Malley knock, the Sterling knockout, which there's a certain level of controversy around the stoppage and also the short turnaround for Aljamain. So in his last fight against Chito, did he show something that you hadn't seen previously, or did he change your opinion of him in any way?
He showed good conditioning, but so that's like a buffet for a fighter like O'Malley. You know, O'Malley has in the past, and I've been working on it a lot, of course, but O'Malley is really precise with his footwork, and like when he hits you, he like really digs into shots.
Mm.
Um, and so kinda, I would argue the only difference of me and O'Malley's fight against Chito was that O'Malley hit him like a lot harder than what I was hitting him. And so I would say it was like I don't mean to shit on Chito like crazy, and it's not really his fault that he got offered a title shot, but Chito had like really no business being in there with him. I know that there was a whole like he beat Sean before, and there's that whole narrative, but as far as like skills go, Sean is just like way better than that guy. So you can't really put, in my opinion, too much of an emphasis on the last opponent just because it was like before that Chito had gotten smoked by me and then like was losing, like he was losing the Frankie fight, he was losing the Cruz fight, and then like caught the people at the end. But catching people is not really a super reliable way to go about building a style. So without, you know, shitting on the fight too much, because it was definitely super impressive in the way that he beat him up. It was kind of like it was like beating up a contender that didn't really deserve to be in there.
Yeah. Couple more from me, man. I'm conscious of time, and I won't keep you too much longer. But you're a married man since your last fight. I know you tied the knot in September. So, how is married life, and does that change preparation in any way?
Nope, doesn't change preference.
Didn't
Actually,
think it did.
I made a promise to her because before it was like, hey, look, don't ever ask me to miss practice. Don't ever like we don't have to say it out loud, but you know that like fighting comes first, you know. So that's what it was for a really long time. But you know, when I asked her to marry me, I definitely have to like I made a promise that she'll come first. So she definitely still comes first, but she understands, man. She's been around for a really long time now, and I feel like I'm definitely like a workaholic. Like I don't really like having fun. I like just working. Like working's plenty of fun for me. Getting better is plenty of fun for me. So she knows that that's how I am, and that's really not going anywhere. And when I'm done fighting, it's probably just going to shift to some other thing that I'm doing anyways. So no, hasn't changed anything.
Well, congratulations nonetheless, and I'll turn the conversation back to your upcoming fight for one final question. You can be as brief or as detailed as you like with this one, Corey, but I'd like to really know, what does the perfect fight day look like for you? So, what I'd like to know is, what happens in a perfect world when you wake up in the morning to when you go to sleep at night on August 3rd?
Ooh, all right. I wake up and hopefully I slept real good in Abu Dhabi. I've had nights where I haven't slept that good before fights, so hopefully I sleep real good. Hopefully the day isn't too boring. That's like it's mostly just sitting around that day anyway. So trying to find ways where I can let my brain relax, but also not like be bored out of my mind, which is typically the case.
Hmm.
And then I get all my shit. I take it over to the arena. I put on all my stuff. I warm up. I'm focused. I walk out, which is like super fun. Walking out to a fight is like mega awesome, and I always cherish those moments because I know that I don't get infinite amount of those. I have a badass, enjoyable walkout. I look over at Umar. We touch gloves. I pretty much don't know what's going on until the final bell or until there's a finish. I get my hand raised. I apologize to Umar for, you know, sending him home the loser because I know that it's sad to go home the loser. And I do feel bad for my opponents because I do know that that like hurts in your heart, you know.
Mm.
But I apologize for sending him home a loser. I go collect my check. I go see the doctor. I got nothing wrong with me. I'm not hurt. And then me and my wife and my mom, who's going to be out there, celebrate with my corner. And we probably just get some pizza, or if they have pizza in Abu Dhabi. And then we just chill out, fly back home.
I love it. Well, Corey, it was truly great to catch up with you today. I've wanted to speak with you for a while, if I can be honest. So I was very glad that we could get this time in the diary. Have a safe and enjoyable rest of camp, and best of luck for the fight.
Cool. Right on. Thanks, Mike. Have a good one, dude.